I'll just briefly say, hi, my name's Finn,
My name is Bryant.
and today we're talking about literature and
And visual novels.
cool. All right, with that intro done, what I was going to say is that reminds me of Magic Treehouse. Are you
That's what
familiar?
I'm thinking of.
Oh, it is what you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking Magic Tree House.
Oh.
I mean, I read that when I was like, I don't know, like 8, so
Yeah,
I don't
me
recall
too.
anything about it. I just remember like that kind of like looking at historical moments from the lens of children's literature.
Magic Treehouse was cool. I really liked
Uh-huh.
Magic Treehouse when I was little.
Yeah.
It was a really cute little story or series. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Happy to have you here. This is episode 8 or 9. I'm like 3 episodes behind editing because it's midterm season. How are your midterms going?
I only have one class right now, and I don't have any midterms because it is a congressional simulation class. And so I really need to keep up on the assignments for the simulation, and eventually I'll have like a reflection, no actual tests.
Yeah.
And then I'm also TA for Intro in American Politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have to grade or proctor or plan the test. I just had to do the review for the midterm, like to teach it over exam. So it's pretty easy. I don't have any midterms or finals. It's great.
Yeah, that's lucky. I had a big essay I had to finish last week,
hmm
and then I have another one next week. So I'm in this like in between 2 essays, but
Yeah, I think like the only thing I have similar to that is this Saturday's MUN event, like the committee having
right.
to have the documents ready, and at least prior to that, like the background guide. That's the only significant like big writing work I've had to do this quarter.
Right. So that does kind of very naturally lead into. So we met through MUN
Yeah.
this year.
hmm
But you were in MUN like a while ago.
Yeah, so I first came to Western in 2018, when I was, a ripe 19 years old, and I decided to do political science back then because I had already been interested in that for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I attended Western until winter 2021 when I graduated. And at that point, I went to University of Nevada, Reno for 2 years for a master's degree in political
Mm-hmm.
science. Now I've returned for a secondary education teaching certificate. So I'm just now finishing up my social studies endorsement
Mm-hmm.
so that I can actually take the program.
Nice.
So I have been in MUN pretty much whenever I am at Western in person. So I was in MUN in the IAA from when I first attended in September 2018 until I suppose March 2020 when we basically canceled everything for
Right.
the year. And then like in 2021 I didn't attend because there weren't any conferences to go to.
Yeah.
And then while I was in grad school, I had the chance to TA a MUN class.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to one conference, MUN Far West, last year, like last spring. And then since then I've returned to the Western's IA.
Yeah, that's funny. I just realized now that we kind of had a similar trajectory in the sense that I got involved in MUN in high school in
Oh, really?
2018. Yeah, I got involved in the Seaham High School, Model
hmm
United Nations, and then I was on the leadership board the following year, the 2019-2020 year, and we had stuff canceled in March 2020 as well.
Yeah.
And then didn't do MUN for 2 years, or
hmm
no, just 1 year during the COVID year,
Yeah.
and then joined MUN here when
That's
when we
pretty
went
good.
back in person.
Yeah, we didn't have MUN at my high school or anything like that. We didn't have debate either. We did have some sort of academic competition clubs. We had
Mm-hmm.
the High Q, which is only it's mainly in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, but there's a branch of it in Snohomish County
Mm-hmm.
and I think a bit in King County. And that's kind of like you have like a team and you go up like against 2 other teams at like one meet, which would be like one match, just one match. It's fairly formal, and you'll be asked a question. If you get it wrong, the other team's gonna hit a buzzer and try to answer. And like you have a certain number of tries to get points,
Right.
so, that sort of thing. And then we also had Knowledge Bowl, which is way more informal and widespread, where it's kind of like huge like sort of regional tournaments
Mm-hmm.
where you can send like multiple teams. Like we'd have like an A team, B team, C team, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was really fun.
Yeah, I never did
Mhm.
Knowledge Bowl at my high school, but we had it.
Yeah.
I kind of regret not doing it, so I think it would have been fun.
Oh, you should have. Yeah, it's a lot more informal. So
Cool.
you kind of get to goof around more.
Cool. Um, how long is your program here at Western for the teaching thing?
I
Or
should
how
be
long would it be?
Yeah, I should be done in winter quarter of 2026. So I have like 1 full year and then
Hmm.
2 quarters.
Nice.
Yeah, because it goes over a bit. It's not
Right.
just 1 year thing because like there's the teaching like practice or a quarter. But yeah,
What do you want to teach?
social studies. I also hope to get an ELA, like English Language Arts endorsement, after I already am have a certificate,
Mm-hmm.
because for that you just need to take a test.
Mm-hmm.
However, to get the certificate, you do need to have like an endorsement from a university. So that's why I'm doing social studies now, and then I'm getting the certificate, and then like outside of school, I'll just self study for ELA,
Sure.
and then
Sure.
like take the exam on my own. Because it's
Yeah.
cheaper to like fail the test multiple times than it is to go back to
To
school
pay
for a
for
year
some program and then
or
yeah.
like 2 years
Yeah.
of college more after having already been in college for oh, I don't know, probably 7 years at that point. So yeah, it's definitely easier.
That's what you want to teach high school?
Yes,
Nice.
I would also be certified to teach middle school, but I personally don't want
Why?
to. Well, okay, it's mainly I suppose the age difference. Middle schoolers, my theory of middle schoolers, high schoolers, and elementary schoolers is that elementary schoolers, they're young enough that they kind of haven't learned that well. You can be like just sort of mean to people for your own benefit. And then and by the time you're a high school, or at least like I don't know, maybe 8th grade, you kind of like gain like the
You understand your actions have consequences
well, yeah,
socially.
I mean like well that and you just kind of have more empathy just because
Right.
it develops over time.
Yeah.
So by high school, people know how to use their powers responsibly. In middle school, they're smart. Like they know how to like impact their surroundings in like complicated ways. They know how to deal with other people. They just don't know what they should not do because like they can have a sense of that's wrong, but it's kind of like that
It's not fully
empathetic.
developed.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not fully developed. Like it's there. It's just not as strong.
Yeah.
That's also that impulse control is, I think, even weaker than like in the high school level.
Yeah.
So that develops like even longer after that.
Yeah.
So, but additionally, since I have traditionally studied political science, that really only touches on high school education once you're like later in high school years.
Junior and senior
Yeah,
years.
so I am interested in teaching history, and because I want to do ELA, I'm interested in teaching like English language arts, and like just kind of social studies electives. But my forte, which is like political science, that only comes into like, civics in
Mm-hmm.
like senior year of high school. So
Yeah.
that's why I want to teach in high school.
I would also, I theoretically also want to teach high
Mm-hmm.
school social studies. Um, that was what I'm in a kind of a teaching track
Yeah.
program right now. It's a social studies history BA.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of my two majors, and so I also want to do high school for a lot of the same reasons that you're saying. I think
Yeah.
my experience learning, the way I teach people is usually through analogy, and the
Mm-hmm.
younger the student, the
Oh yeah.
less analogies work.
Yeah, or at least you need to think about what sort of analogy works for them
Yeah,
more. Whereas for when you're talking about a high schooler, they don't have the life experience you do, but like
no,
they have an understanding of
but you can talk to them.
like
Yeah,
culture of like
yeah,
kind of the broader world. You can kind of make more analogies like for that sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
So I woke up and went immediately to class. I am someone that likes to, well, not so much likes to, is I think I probably have delayed sleep phase disorder, to where for me a natural time to wake up is probably like 1 or 2 p.m. Of course, I did have to get up at 9 in order to go to class,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like way early for me. And I've kind of gotten myself to the point where I can comfortably wake up at like 11 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
or at least by noon. So I was really tired. I woke up late enough that I would not be able to eat breakfast, as was the plan, because I did not want to get up any earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bowl of soup after class. So I'm not late enough into the day where I'm really that hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's like 9 a.m. That's before I would even be up. Why would I have breakfast at that point? Sort of. So that's the sort of problem. Whereas noon, eating at noon, that made more sense. So I didn't really have breakfast per se, but I had a bowl of Progresso chicken barley soup. It's my favorite soup, aside from like I don't know chicken noodle at like
Yeah.
this one casino restaurant that I like, or even Denny's has it pretty good. But it's my favorite canned soup. It's so good. Like barley, it's so much better than noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. What do you have?
I just had a protein shake, but
Yeah,
I had a really like great big lunch.
good.
I have a bad habit of waking up only about 15 minutes before I have to leave to catch the bus.
No, exactly. Well, I mean,
Um,
I do it earlier because my hair is too curly.
sure.
But yeah,
I'm a evening showerer,
yeah,
so
I can't do that.
yeah. So
I look like a monster if I went out. Like even if I tied my hair back, it would be so frizzy.
yeah, my hair is like, according to my barber,
Uh-huh.
it's like very very straight.
Yeah,
Like it's super straight.
yeah. Mine, I have to like soak it in the shower. Shampoo helps, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily required. And then I have to get out, rub gel through the whole thing, like just to push it back, and then I have to tie it. And if I don't, then eventually it'll kind of loosen up too much, and it'll get all over my face.
All crazy.
I can't stand having hair on my face. That's why I don't have hair, and why I pull it all back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're, I don't know, for getting up late, you're pretty well put together. Got a nice button down.
This is kind of how I always dress.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, unless sometimes I'll go to like a MUN meeting wearing like a band shirt or something. Um, I don't really like to present myself in casual clothing. I don't like how I look in it.
Mm-hmm.
This just feels more comfortable to me, like to present myself. Like when I'm
Mm-hmm.
at home, I mean, this is pretty comfortable, so after I get home, I might just like kind of lay around in this.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not going out, then I'll wear like shorts or
Yeah.
like a t-shirt or whatever. But when in terms of being perceived by others, I definitely prefer to wear kind of like business casual. Jeans are fine. Jeans are
Yeah.
but good, and they are comfortable. Of course, that's kind of more important, I think, with pants. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I kind of go back and forth. Like,
Hmm.
during a given week, there will be like 2 or 3 days a week where I'll just wear like a t-shirt or like
Yeah.
like a sweatshirt with like a logo on it or something.
I don't think I've ever seen you dress like that.
Really?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, I'll do that for a month or something.
Okay.
I do it like at least like 2 or 3 times a week.
I think it's
Um,
just not the days where we haven't met.
Yeah.
Or I just never noticed. That's
Yeah.
likely.
I just wear like a t-shirt. Sometimes I mean, like I was in Seattle this weekend and it was super hot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not gonna wear this. I just
Yeah.
wore like a t-shirt and jeans.
I even when it's hot out, unless it's like the dead of summer, I wear this and I wear my winter coat. I just
And your winter coat?
well, I
I
mean,
can understand this, but
okay, if it's like 60 degrees outside, I'll wear my winter coat. If it
oh
gets
yeah,
up to
I'm
like
talking about. It was like 82 in
oh yeah,
Seattle.
that's too hot.
Yeah.
I would just wear this instead.
Yeah.
Because like this is actually quite breathable.
Yeah,
And
it looks
like
like
my
it,
coat is because I'll have it like way open,
Yeah.
like just kind of resting on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Whereas like a sweatshirt, it just traps all the heat in. Like I can wear real thick clothes and it looks like it's supposed to be hot, but it's actually like
Yeah.
quite like aerated. It's
Yeah.
nice.
But yeah, I guess I present myself in varied ways. I also
Yeah.
have come to like dressing up.
Hmm.
But I'm cool with more casual. It kind of just depends on my mood for
Yeah.
the day. Um, but I think in the interest of time, we should jump into the main
Yes.
topic. Maybe do you want to start with what you brought with
Yes. I brought my copy of Frankenstein. It is one of my two favorite books that I got in high school. I don't remember if I had to read it for class, but I did at least for the other one, which is a picture of Dorian Gray, which I could not find my copy of. Otherwise, I probably would have brought that. And it doesn't have to do very directly with the topic of conversation, being visual novels, but I think it's kind of a symbol of like what I really enjoy about literature,
you?
which is what makes me enjoy visual novels.
Mhm.
So
Well, so what?
yeah, go
Unless
ahead.
you're going to say something that's leads into this, but
Hmm.
what is a visual novel for those that
That's a great
might
question
not know?
because I think probably most people don't.
Yeah.
They are okay. Imagine a book, a video game, and in most cases, an anime, like Japanese animation.
Hmm.
And you combine them all together into the perfect like middle point of all of those things, to where it is in terms of content, it is a like novel in terms
Yeah,
of like the narrative content,
like the
but
amount of
yeah,
content there is. Yeah.
but it's presented in the way of a relatively simple video game
Hmm.
where you have characters on the screen and they are usually voice acted. uh you have to like press the space bar to make the text go by to basically to like kind of change lines that you're reading
Hmm.
and change the lines that they're saying. There's music, there sound effects, visual effects, depending on how like well polished it is.
Sure.
They often uh have sort of narrative choices that you can make like in the game. Some are more interactive than
So it's
others.
sort of a choose
It's
your own
sort of,
adventure.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. That's what I think the most popular ones are. Like the really like well acclaimed, very long ones are. They
Hmm.
might have like completely different story routes that branch off from the same starting
Sure.
point. So they're kind of they're distinct from most books in that sense, and they're distinct from video games in the sense that there's not much gameplay per se aside from choosing what you want to have happen in the story.
Hmm.
Though some of them do have like mini games, or they are like hybrid genres of say one of the probably most popular visual novel series is not really that much of a visual novel in my mind, being Danganronpa. It's kind of more of like kind of a mystery solving adventure game, but like the way it presents a lot of the dialogue and like in terms of how the story is structured is a bit more visual novel esque, and it's usually considered that. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of games that are kind of like a mix of different like mediums, I would say, because I would say that this is a distinct medium from like paper books or from uh, video games proper.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Do you have a favorite visual novel?
yes, I do. That would be Fate's Day Night. Um, it's I'd say it's the only like franchise of which I could say that I am like a super fan in any sense. It is I think like 80 hours long to read.
Wow.
Yeah, some of these can be absolutely gargantuan. It is not close to the biggest one. That is because they are split into multiple stories in the same like package.
Hmm.
You have to the way that that one is structured is that first you have like a story you read through. There's a bunch of like there's like a dozen like bad endings in which like the main character like dies in a horrible fashion. Uh, and then you reach the end of that story, and then it gives you new options to go into like the new story,
Right.
and then you finish that one and it does that again.
So you're not just
So,
like, oh, the my character died two chapters in, and the game's over. You can.
well, I mean, well, you just have to reload a save,
Right.
like a
Okay.
bookmark, basically.
Oh, okay.
And there's like 40 different bad ends, 40, that is, and there's like three different main routes. So it kind of all starts from the same starting position, which the premise is there. Okay, there's a secret society of people who use magic.
Hmm.
They're not kind of as reclusive as like I don't know Harry Potter, but they're not really public either. And some of them, like just kind of like a random group of them in Japan, is like most magic users and mages are based more of kind of in England,
Hmm.
but like
So they live in
yeah,
society, but they keep it like on the low down.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So a group of them in Japan have started in like the 1860s or something like that, or 1800s or something. A what is described by people back in the metro bunch full of like England as a strange Far East ritual where they are competing for the Holy Grail, which will grant them any wish. Because it can actually perform miracles, whereas
Hmm.
like the magic they can do are basically shortcuts to like, things you can already do.
Hmm.
So they are fighting with heroes from the past, future, and from fiction and legend that they like summon from the Holy Grail to then try
Hmm.
to kill each other, and the last one standing gets the Grail, so they can make a wish. So that it's like a battle royale.
That's not the. That's not the same thing as the show you showed me, right?
The what?
The show. The like.
Yeah, that's the prequel.
Oh. Oh.
It's
Okay.
like
It's the
it's
same
because that
franchise.
one's like in a paper book
Oh. Okay.
instead of yeah. No, it's a very extensive one.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it goes
you
across
know what I'm talking
mediums.
about. Yeah, it is
There's visual novels. That's
yeah.
because you showed me a TV show.
Exactly. Well, the thing about visual novels is they're kind of that transmedium landscape
Mm-hmm.
of like Japanese like otaku culture of anime, manga, video games, especially Japanese RPGs. Sometimes like live action adaptations. Light novels, just like kind of web novels or whatever. And visual novels are probably the most obscure format. of that sort of like
But
transmedia
so a
landscape.
single canon can span all these genres.
Yeah, and it is
Or not
very,
genres, but mediums.
but yeah, exactly. And it is very common for these to be adapted into anime or
Huh.
manga. That's, I think, how they became popular in the U.S. Because like back in, say, I think, okay, visual novels kind of started as a thing in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
but they were mostly not safe for work. They were mostly made for Japanese men to enjoy in their off time.
Yeah. So
And
that is the thing that
yeah,
I've heard about
so
visual novels.
they were not popular anywhere
Yeah.
else. They didn't really get translated. They sort of turned into more, I wouldn't say family friendly like stories
But
like in
just
the
not
90s,
like,
but they're not outright porn.
yeah.
They turn into more of like serious stories
Yeah.
which had shoehorned in a bunch of sex scenes basically just to appeal to that market that they
Mm-hmm.
thought they was the only market of Japanese men,
Mm-hmm.
mainly young men who use computers a lot. That was their like who they thought they were
Yeah.
the only people who'd buy these. But then by the early 2000s, it turned into more all ages like
Sure.
products, and then from there, at the same time, anime was getting a lot more popular in the West. People were like translating it, episodes on their own without like official licensing. So that was when people started in the West taking more notice of these products, which were, in my opinion, getting a lot higher quality and more
Mm-hmm.
like, complex of stories. And from there, people started translating them like to share with other enthusiasts. And then because a lot of these were popular from adaptations, only in probably the last 10 years or so have like, the publishers actually started to try to release them in English more because they realized there's a market for that. That was
Mm-hmm.
not the case before. And that's all because it's part of that like sort of transmedia landscape of like anime, manga, like these adaptations of
Yeah.
it, and vice versa. Yeah.
So over time, visual novels have become more popular and adopted like a wider,
Yeah,
almost universal in the sense of like
in the sense
all
of
different
like,
demographics audience.
yeah, in terms of who you're trying to appeal to. I think I can give
Yeah.
an example of like the works produced by
Sure.
the company or the studio Key. They originally, I think they broke off from a studio that made sort of like narrowly complex, but honestly kind of dark and with a lot of like sexual elements of stories. And then they kind of brought that into a lot more soft, mostly friendly, sort of like romance visual novels
Sure.
of, yeah, like a lot more like grounded stories, though often with magical elements, like a little bit.
Yeah.
Then in I'd say 2004, I believe they released Conad, which is a very popular one. It turned into a very popular TV series and manga, and that was the point where they stopped shoehorning in a bunch of sex scenes just to appeal to their core demographic.
Yeah.
And from there, it became actually quite popular, at least among people who spoke the correct language
Sure.
and who were already watched anime or read manga, things like that. Because it's not really a medium that would be popular with people who didn't enjoy those sorts of stories anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, since then, a lot more English language publishers, as well as some Russian language publishers, have created like their own, sort of based on like that sort of originally Japanese medium, that are sort of free from the baggage of like Japanese like otaku culture. Like one that I really enjoyed and was one of the first ones that got me into the medium was
Mm-hmm.
called well, actually, it's not quite a visual novel, but Life is Strange. It's
Oh, I've heard of
yeah,
this.
it's an adventure game. It's based, well, it's not based on, but it's inspired by some like Japanese visual novels in its format, such as Danganronpa, which I wouldn't call a visual novel, but it's also an adventure game.
Sure.
And it sort of went in the direction of it's not like you're reading a text. Like
Yeah.
you have a character you control, but it's based around narrative, very very heavily music,
Yeah.
visuals,
Yeah. Yeah.
not really so much interactivity.
No, I remember that
Yeah,
game. That game was big.
it's
From what I remember. I mean, I like.
it's
I.
not nearly as big as a visual novel, just because like,
Oh, sorry. I meant like big as in
I see.
popular.
Yeah, I think meant like length.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's not like huge, but it's kind of within the mainstream of gaming culture in the U.S.
Yeah. Well,
And
like I
like that
remember.
was what got me to be like, oh, I want to read more like, oh, read, but at that point more play, more very narrative like heavy games, and that sort of led me down the path of reading these, which are basically books instead of actually playing a game. So it was kind of that slippery slope.
Well, yeah. Well, I remember back in, I guess it would be 2016, PewDiePie playing it because
Really.
I watched PewDiePie when I was like in 8th grade,
Hmm.
and he was like, I think he was just like, "Whoa, this game is so weird. This is such a weird game." And I was like, "Yeah, it is pretty weird."
Uh-huh.
And
In a
then
good way.
I've heard about people. It's been mentioned many times
Yeah.
by people I know and by like
Yeah,
people
there were
online
a number
and
of
stuff.
sequels.
So it seems to have persisted in the.
Yes, it has. And I think what kind of connects it is like it was, excuse me, it was written by, I believe, French Canadians, but it was like published and kind of part of like Japanese, like a Japanese publisher. So
Sure.
it kind of connected a bit in terms of like format. Um, but really, I suppose what Life is Strange, and then subsequently visual novels such as Steins Gate. Later, by the time I read Fate, my favorite, I was already well into it, like that
Hmm.
sort of medium. But it sort of brought me back to, oh, I don't just want to play video games. I want to like read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to consume this narrative, like learn,
yeah,
not learn, but like yeah, experience the storyline
exactly.
for what it
In
is.
like much greater detail, and again, like in the form of actually reading rather than like seeing these things happen like in sort of a more interactive and like sort of visual based format of like a video game. But I was very much a huge reader in elementary school.
Hmm. Me too.
Yeah, like I was pretty. I had a very strong literacy from an early age.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think like my parents and just my school made that big part of life.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed stories such as like Harry Potter,
Hmm.
as we were talking about the Percy Jackson series,
Hmm.
a lot of graphic novels. That sort of fell out of my lifestyle by the end of middle school
Me too.
because
Me too.
I got really into video games towards like later elementary school. Like I remember like the first time I played Halo was when I was like 8 or 9, and I really enjoyed that. And I think as someone with ADHD, it became easier to interface with like video games in terms of like
Hmm.
a matter of practicality. Because when you have ADHD, it can be hard to sit there and read a book for like hours at a time. Whereas when the symptoms hadn't really manifested and I was like in elementary school, I could just go sit and read.
Yeah.
So that was what I really enjoyed about visual novels is it makes it more accessible for someone like me because there's a lot more going on the screen aside from just the text. Like you got the music in your ears, you've got characters on the screen that like have different movements. If it's something like Fate, it has actually kind of animation in it, even though it's like 20 years old and it uses actually just static images that it moves around the screen. They do it in such a way that it's like very animated. It's quite pretty actually. So that sort of gauges my interest or engages my interest more than
Hmm.
a white paper with black text on it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
It's
way
something
easier
that's
to
maybe more tangible or
yeah,
more
like I could sit there and
interactive.
just read for the entire day at
Yeah.
that point. And I did think that going to grad school and having to read a lot of nonfiction sort of helped my engagement, like in terms of being able to sit there and read for a whole day, because
Hmm.
you have to, and you kind of gain that skill a bit more. But in terms of having the enthusiasm for sitting down and reading the whole day, I think visual novels are very good for that, and I recommend them on that basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I think it's not so much because of their medium, at least most of them again are sort of more grounded in Japanese storytelling,
Hmm.
like as you might see in like anime, but more like of literature, and I suppose.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot more novelty to that, I think. Whereas if you're someone like me, who I grew up not engaging with any sort of like otaku culture or any Japanese culture, aside
Hmm.
from watching like Pokemon, I guess, or like collecting the cards. Um, Having that sort of more cultural diversity of what you are able to read by gaining access to a new medium was something very enjoyable for me and
Hmm.
something that kind of like drew my curiosity more.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of coming up on our time
Hmm.
here, but to close us out, what is something that you are looking forward to? Whether it's something in your personal life, your academic life, or something related to the topic. something new related to the topic that we're talking
I
about?
can give you two things. One, I am looking forward to whatever the next election in Europe is that I can follow, because that is another one of my hobbies.
Yep, that would be the thing we often talk about.
Yes, that is what we usually are talking about instead of this.
Yeah,
And then the remastered and first official English language publication of Fate's Stay Nights coming out this year. So I'm looking forward to
cool.
that. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm definitely going to buy that. I don't usually actually pay for my games, but for that one I might.
Not in this case.
Nope. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Bryant.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye, everybody.